Hi, I'm Chitose, and this is the Brad and Chi Twitter cast. Today we have a special guest, but first we're going to introduce us, me and Brad, of course. I'm Chi, Chitose official on Twitter. I am a content creator and a community leader. I have a Discord community, and yeah, so here's Brad. Brad.
Yes, I'm Brad, known as the underscore underscore carnival on Twitter because I refuse to accommodate myself to any form of combination of numbers. I'm mainly just a gamer on Twitter that posts a variety of stuff. Known for smelling all of my new games and right now
Mhm.
appreciating Jin Sakai's very fine ass.
Worshipping that
Um,
ass.
yeah.
Worthy of.
So we're gonna go ahead and introduce our guest. Is Matthew Dayton. Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
As you heard from Brad, I'm Matt. I'm Cannibal on Twitter, and my handle changes depending on what game I'm playing, as with so many others. I'm an artist, and I don't really know how we would describe my Twitter. It's really just mostly me, speaking out into the void. I just say whatever comes to mind, probably
But I
30 or
like
40
that.
times a day.
I like personable people. Like, I can't follow people that don't post about themselves. Like, it's really
Yeah,
bothersome.
and I don't know. I don't like the fake personalities too
Mm-hmm.
much. I know that people have brands to sell and things like that, but when somebody's
A little
committed entirely to
positivity.
this, yeah, this false persona, I don't know.
I
It doesn't
agree
work for me.
wholeheartedly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have the same perception of Twitter where I like following realistic people. Like, I want to know. Like, I don't care if you're like having a bad day. I don't care if you post about it.
Exactly.
There's some people
Exactly.
out there that they get really like pent up about like, oh, this person's so negative and they have horrible mental health issues. Ah.
Yes.
Now,
I
Matt,
try to avoid all that stuff, but
Mm,
it finds its way. It's Twitter.
right.
it is the
Yeah.
internet is it's a crazy place. Now, Matt, why don't you tell people about it? We know you're big into dreams, and you're
Yes.
actually currently working on porting the original Tomb Raider game in there. That's one of the things you are. You're a big Tomb Raider fan. Why don't you tell people a little bit about that?
So early on, obviously, Dreams was announced like 8 years ago at this point, and I immediately, from their first show, was probably more hyped for Dreams than I've ever been for any app or game I've ever seen in my life, and I don't know why. It just immediately, I'm an artist, so I'm a visual artist, and so it immediately spoke to me as an artist, because for the first couple years that Sony and Media Molecule showed Dreams, it seemed to be more of like a scene creating app, or something where you could just create simple two-dimensional or three-dimensional scenes. And it wasn't until a couple years in that they started showing, oh no, this is actually a full-fledged game development platform that we're going to release, for people to make their dreams on. So immediately I wanted to remake the original Tomb Raider, which I know has at this point been remade by Core and canceled, and then remade by Crystal Dynamics and released, and then remastered twice. So I
But
know that
it's
it's
such
been
a good
remade several
game.
times.
It's one of my
But
favorite
I
games. So,
Yeah, it will always speak to me. It was the first game that I ever bought with my own money when I was 13 years old. And yeah, it was birthday money, so it wasn't really my own. I didn't earn it at 13, but it was the first game I ever pulled $65 together to go buy when I saw somebody playing it on Sega Saturn. I instantly fell in love with it. So I bought it on PlayStation, and I decided early on that I wanted to remake it in Dreams, and have been working on it not so steadily as at first, but I work on it probably once, twice, three times a week. And I'm currently on the fifth level of the game, and I think there's like 16 or 17 levels on the original Tomb Raider, so I've got some serious work cut out for me. And it also, unfortunately, the worst part about it is that the first thing that I ever made in Dreams was the first level of Tomb Raider, and then the last thing that I ever made in Dreams was the last level that I made in Tomb Raider. So the dichotomy in playability and level design is huge between the first level and the fourth level. But yeah, it's that's basically what I've been doing with Dreams. I've been making original content as well in there, and I sculpt and I draw and I make animations. But Tomb Raider always calls me back.
Do you have to replay the game several times, or do you just have the whole game memorized?
No, so the first level I do have completely memorized because obviously it's the quickest to jump into, and I can finish that level in seriously like 2 minutes. In the original game because it's exactly where to go, and the level's not as big as it seemed when we were in 1996 when that game came out. There was no levels like that yet, so it seemed like this infinite exploration, vast expansive exploration. And I can go back into the original level and I pretty much know that level by heart, and maybe the second level I did from mostly memory. And the Lost Valley, actually. So the first 3 levels, I would say. But since the Tomb of Qualopec, which is the 4th level, and definitely the levels going forward, I'm going to need to watch walkthroughs as I build it. Just to get simple references of the traps and puzzles. And I do change things up a little bit because I don't want players going in that know Tomb Raider to know exactly what to do right away. But for the most part, it's a pretty faithful remake. So I do watch playthroughs on YouTube, and I take snapshots of it for references for art and design.
That's a lot of talent. Oh my
Thanks.
I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
For those of you listening, Matt shares a lot of his Tomb Raider progress updates and all of his other Dreams updates on his Twitter page. So if you're curious in following that journey and looking more into it, go ahead and give him a follow on Twitter.
He's also very personable too, which that's what I like about Matthew. So I'm like, yeah. No,
I tried to be.
So definitely a good.
Too much of my time on Twitter, but I love it.
No, I'm the same way. Like 16 times a day, I swear. So that's the whole point of this podcast. So it's like we decided probably around the June that we wanted to bring the community a lot closer. Like we noticed a lot of separation with a certain incident with a person in the Final Fantasy community that was like, I'm pretty sure you probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And we wanted to bring the community together and like introduce people and like maybe like say, hey, like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's a good idea. With us being in a pretty much all digital world right now, us extroverts are really struggling. So I appreciate any interaction and all interaction. Twitter and online world has been my saving grace, I swear.
Yeah, no, same. So, I'm an extreme extrovert and I work a lot. Yes. And so Twitter's like,
and I feel like in the last, and it's probably because we're all stuck in front of our screens right now, but I feel like in the last year, I've come across so many people on Twitter that I don't understand how I didn't come across before. Like, friends of friends that have as many followers or mutuals as I do that I've just literally never once seen a post of theirs.
Yep.
And I was like
the same about you. Like I think I saw you maybe once or twice, but I'm like, oh, okay, you're friends with all of my friends.
Exactly.
So that's the whole point of this podcast is to really try to introduce everybody, bring them together, like bring various different people, talk about different games and such. So I'm glad that you're able to be here today.
Yes, me too. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're very honored, and we're hoping, like I said, this will bring more friendships for everybody, that people will start seeing their friendships grow on here. And
I hope so.
So the purpose of this specific episode is we're going to be talking about a variety of topics today, starting with the PlayStation 5, its launch, kind of what's going up, and then the very interesting announced KFC console, which apparently is real according to the internet. And KFC itself. And then finally, we're going to top it off with it being a new year, just kind of talking about a few of the big 2021 releases, kind of what we're most hyped about, and kind of kick off the new year here. So, Matt, I know you're a lifelong PlayStation gamer, big fan of PlayStation.
Yes.
You were able to secure a PlayStation 5 at launch, I believe, pre-order. Right?
I still don't have one, so congrats.
Thanks.
So we'll start off with that. So Matt, you got yours through pre-order, correct?
Yes, I did on Amazon.
Awesome. So why don't you talk about what are your initial thoughts been about the PlayStation 5? Has it been a game changer for it? Is it exciting? Should people really be jumping on this as quickly as possible?
I'm going to sound really biased. I would definitely say yes. Anybody that knows me knows that comes from a place of, like you said, I really do love PlayStation. I do also love Nintendo. I love video games. I love PC. I love video games. So PlayStation has just, it came out in my formative years, and that's probably why I took such a connection to it, versus, growing up with Atari and Nintendo and Sega. I don't know, PlayStation just taught me that stories can be, and this isn't fair to Nintendo, having, they've had some mature content as well. It was just, for some reason, when PlayStation came out, all of the games that I got for it from the get-go spoke to me in a way that was more of a story-driven.
I agree with you.
And kind of let me be like, wait, video games can be for adults. I'm playing something that I'm probably too young for right now.
So I got the PlayStation around 2002. I was about 10 years old. I bought, like, same story as you. Bought it with my own money. Bought my first game with my own money, with my birthday money. And same thing. Like, I was more attracted to the adult-like games of the PlayStation 1 than I was to Nintendo. I love Nintendo, don't get me wrong.
Exactly,
but, like, the games at the time, I really much more enjoyed.
Absolutely. And it wasn't so much that I spent, probably over 100 hours in front of Ocarina of Time just running around. Mario 64, same thing.
I love Mario
I played all kinds of racing games and games on Nintendo 64, and I absolutely love that console and always will. But the games that were out at the time were more like Conker and Mario, and there were story-driven games like Final Fantasy VI was on Super Nintendo, and I absolutely fell in love with that story.
Oh, good.
There was just something more decidedly adult, I guess, about the games when I played them, like Metal Gear Solid and I'm talking about a couple years into PlayStation's existence.
Right.
I kind of went back, but we were talking about the PS5 launch. I just wanted to give a basis as to why I would say, from my perspective, why it's absolutely worth it. I mean, the backward compatibility is not, I know that this is not fair to people. I have a giant collection of video games. I don't even really care about the backward compatibility. I've probably spent a total of 3 or 4 hours using backward compatibility. So that does limit some of the usability of the PS5 for me, because obviously there's only 12, 15 games out for it right now.
Correct.
So if none of those games speak to you, the biggest one for me is Demon's Souls. I've always loved Demon's Souls. I've always loved Souls games. Demon's Souls sold me the second it came out on PS3, and I played the shit out of it. So, if that game doesn't speak to you, there's really not much else on PS5 that you can't play on PS4.
I'm one of those people that wait a year after a console comes out because of the exclusive games, and and the game I'm waiting for is, we're going to talk about that later, hasn't come out yet, or they don't even have a date for it yet. So, of course, I'm going to wait on that. But just hearing about the PlayStation release and the Xbox release, which, I mean, I'm sure we'll touch a little bit about Xbox as well. We can't really, completely be biased about, even though we're all PlayStation gamers.
Yes.
So, I mean...
So, I would say, if you're a hardcore gamer, like me, and I know you both are. I'm not saying you're not a hardcore gamer because you didn't buy console on launch. If you're a fanatic like me, then absolutely it's worth it. My PS5 has not gotten a moment's rest. I have played it non-stop since I bought it, and part of that, to be fair, is Dreams, so I am using the backward compatibility, despite what I just said. I am playing Dreams constantly still.
What do you think of
so
the
backward compatibility, oh my god, I love it. I took it out of the package and I put it in my hands and I was like, man, this feels like, I don't know. I want to say the 4 really disappointed me, because the battery life was absolutely terrible on it. I mean, laughably terrible.
But
With
it's
Dreams,
all around vibration, though.
No, the PS5 controller is fantastic.
Yeah, okay.
The PS4 controller battery drove me nuts.
Okay, yeah.
Because with Dreams, you use motion input, so I'm not kidding you. Those controllers lasted 3.5 hours for me. And I have 14 of them. And every single controller that I have has a broken button or a stuck part, and they came that way. And so picking up the DualSense, I immediately felt like, oh, this is not cheap. And the DualShock 4 felt a little cheap to me always.
I thought I was excessive with 3 controllers, like 14 controllers. Do you like the colors of them? Are you like me, where you're just like?
Yes. Let me just say that I don't buy all those controllers.
Okay.
I'll usually buy 4 controllers. I had kids. I had 3 kids when the PlayStation 4 came out. And they wanted to play all the multiplayer games with me. So I bought 4 black controllers. Well, the one that came with it, and then I bought 3. A friend of mine, 2 friends of mine, would buy me a colored controller for every birthday and every Christmas. So whatever was out, I would get for birthday or Christmas. So that is how I ended up with so many controllers. I'm not going to say that I didn't buy any of them, because like that berry colored one...
I have
every
the
once
rose
in a while, I'm
gold.
like, I can't wait.
My favorite.
Yes.
My favorite is actually
so
I got into the Sunset Orange, or as
I
we've all
love
done,
that one, and the blue.
Oh, really?
Like the neon blue is really cool too.
Yeah, I like that. And my favorite one, I think, is the 500 million console. It's like the see-through blue one with the gold buttons.
That one was gorgeous.
Reminds me of a Mad Catz controller.
It does. It does.
With Sony reinventing, obviously they've moved on from the DualShock phase. The PS5 controller is not called the DualShock 5 for those that don't know. It's called the DualSense, and it's a whole different world. It provides haptic feedback. The triggers are adaptive. You've got still the vibrations, the touchpad, all of that, the mic, and it feels quite revolutionary. I have a PlayStation 5 myself, and Matt, how would you describe? Would you describe the DualSense as kind of a game changer, a bit revolutionary in terms of controllers?
I would more so with the adaptive triggers than I would anything else. There is nothing. I mean, I don't even want to play racing games at all on PS4 anymore, because after playing a racing game on PS5 and feeling like with WRC9, I love rally racing and I love racing games. As your car gets damaged, you start to feel the clunking and the resistance and the changes in the way your car is behaving in your hands. And that has never been transferred to a controller in history. I mean, like, I can feel the moment when I hit the brakes, when the anti-lock brakes not only grab, but start pumping against my finger. So there's a really, really ridiculously extra deep layer of immersion in the triggers, in my opinion. I have every game that has adaptive triggers, I've caught myself smiling while I'm playing it. And that doesn't happen a lot in video games. You get immersed and you'll laugh at funny moments and you'll smile and cry and get emotional with the story. But to find myself like giddy like a child when you first picked up the Nintendo controller because it was your first non-joystick controller, or, picking up the N64 Rumble Pack and feeling the first ever vibration. I would say it's akin to that. So I would say it's a game changer. With that said, the haptic feedback is perhaps just a small evolution of the already HD Rumble on Switch, I would say. Right. It's good, and I would say it's got more, perhaps more of a range and more of an impact. Like, you can really feel the controller kind of jerking one direction or another when you hit a rock or when you fire a gun. You really feel that impact. But I would say that Switch was the jumping off point for that technology. Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, so next, we'll go ahead and move on to Sony. Actually, they came out with a pretty decent launch lineup. Now, I know a lot of it was also included with PS4, but we did get several first-party launch titles with Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Sackboy: A Big Adventure. We got Demon's Souls, which we've already covered a little bit on here, and then the console itself came packed in with Astro's Playroom, which was kind of a sequel to Astrobot Rescue Mission on the PlayStation
Mini
VR.
sequel, yeah.
And it's kind of like a big tech demo, I would say, for the PS5 in a way, even though it's a full-fledged little platformer.
I like to be careful with the term tech demo for that game, because Astro's Playroom on PS4, the Playroom on PS4, which launched also free with all PS4s, was a tech demo. It was a game that you could finish in 13, 14 minutes with some multiplayer tossed in, that utilized all the basic functions of the DualShock 4. But I would say Astro's Playroom on PS5 it's not a full-fledged game by any means, but I would give it the I'm not trying to say you were disrespectful or anything, but I would say giving it the label or the respect of being something more akin to like a $20 PSN game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a real game. There's plenty to do in it, and it's not the only shortfall for me was that it wasn't difficult at all. It was a blast to play, but at no point was I like, man, how am I going to figure this out or do that? That's really my only complaint about it. It was a tech demo for the controller, but do you know what I mean? It was more than a tech demo.
I totally understand that, yeah. Because I played it. It was the first game I played on PS5.
Yeah,
I was really excited for it because I had seen enough screenshots on the on Twitter and videos, and I was like, wow, it kind of revolutionizes the history of PlayStation. It kind of showcases it to you, and they literally have cameos from so many games that have appeared on a PlayStation console.
I loved it. The tears that ran.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
It was so nostalgic.
It was, and I spent all my time exploring each area in depth because I was waiting for my one cameo,
Yes.
Where are they? And the biggest one that I was looking for, I ended up missing and had to go back and look for it, and that was Tomb Raider. I wanted to see Lara Croft.
Me too. I couldn't find her anywhere, and there she was, way up in the jungle.
She was too high up on the cliff.
Like that's not the first place as a Tomb Raider basic. I would go even further than fanatic, like obsession. I still didn't find Lara Croft until, I'm not kidding you, I had to go through the game 4 times, knowing that she was in that level, looking for her because I didn't want to just look it up.
Yeah.
It ruins the fun a lot, too.
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah, they made her Rose Waldo on steroids.
And I will say regarding that game that no other game in recent memory has had a soundtrack that was so immediately over the top catchy. I mean, it blew Astrobot's Rescue Mission on PSVR out of the water in terms of it, which had a great soundtrack. But I'm not joking you that I could not sleep because that stupid GPU song would not leave my head. And the moment my brain fired up for the day, it was like, GPU. I just could not stop with that stupid soundtrack.
It's like the SSX Tricky soundtrack.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. It'll stick with you. It's really, and what's neat about the GPU
so
song
good.
is you can actually, in that level, find the lyrics to it. Like, there's little...
I know. It's cool. It's so cool.
And, all right, so we have a few others. Did you play any of the other launch titles outside of Demon? Did you play Sackboy or Spider-Man at all?
So I'm pretty sure I got every single launch title,
Nice.
besides like the sports games. I will say that in comparison to like the cross-gen titles that were on PS3 and PS4, the PS4, PS5 cross-gen titles are significantly different. Like Sackboy is the amount of detail that is missing in the PS4 version, which is not a dog on the PS4. I will always love the PlayStation 4. It's still an impressively capable system that I go back and look at games from like launch days and I'm still like, man, this is a launch game on a 8-year-old console. This is insane. So I still go back. I'm not dogging on the graphics on PS4 at all. I just would say that in comparison to like, let's say The Last of Us Remastered, on PS3 was already a technically jaw-dropping game. When they released it on PS4, they did add some to the lighting and the frames. You know, the frames were bumped up to 60 frames per second in one mode and then 4K 30 in the other. But with the PS5, it seems like the jump in power is so significant in comparison that games like Sackboy are entirely different to look at.
Like I was looking at the stats for it. Like it's more of a computer now than a console, you know? Like it runs
absolutely.
like a basic gaming computer. And that's what really impressed me is now that consoles like the Xbox and the PlayStation are into SSDs. I know we're going to talk about the KFC console here in a bit.
Yeah.
I noticed that they were talking about putting an SSD in that, and like it's
Yes.
so impressive because I'm primarily a PC gamer, and
Yeah.
going and looking at these consoles, it makes me like, oh well, they're catching up to PC gaming, and like now, and a lot of games are going on cross consoles, like different titles are going on cross consoles. Not really a
Mm-hmm.
big deal to like have all of the consoles right away. Like if you just buy them, because all the
Right.
like all the titles are sporadically gonna go out on all the consoles.
Absolutely.
It seems like.
I think that's always been a discussion, is consoles catching up to PC, which, as we all, anybody out there with any semblance of intelligence knows that's absolutely impossible. Anybody with $1,000 more can outbuy anybody else's PC, basically.
That's why I said base gaming PC. I didn't want to like make it sound like, oh, it's
and
like
so
liquid cooling.
I think it's no, of course, I know you're not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I think that what causes that discussion is that games for PC, with some exception, I don't want to say PC doesn't have exclusives or anything, but PC games have to be developed for a breadth of GPUs, CPUs, and HDD, SSD combinations. Whereas a console game, until last generation, was developed for, one set of consoles. So there was only 2 GPUs and 2 CPUs they were ever really concerned about. So you see games like God of War and Uncharted 4 looking, by some people's words, better than anything on PC, and that's only because it's so hyper optimized for the chipset in the console. So it's hard to not say, man, they're close to PC with this console or that console, but it's just a matter of because the games can be so hyper optimized.
And that's
you know what
why
I mean?
games are released 6 months to a year after they're released on consoles, because they're working on the FPS, the graphics, the lighting, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a problem about being a PC gamer.
PCs are the generators of CGI, and they create all of that. So that's not real time, that's all process, but it has to render it using its GPU and CPU, so it's doing it in real time on its brain. So computers will always be so much more advanced than consoles can ever be, but I think that's what makes consoles, it's special because companies like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo have to be like, man, we can't make a $2,000 dual GPU powerhouse. We have to figure out how to impress people that can't spend more than $400 or $500.
Right.
So I think that's what makes consoles, and I'm not saying PCs are not special, because again, I love PCs. I love what they bring to the table.
No, I love
PC gaming.
both.
I grew up with it, and I played PC a ton. So I will always have a special place in my heart for PC gaming as well. I just think that that's kind of what makes consoles special.
I agree wholeheartedly too, and I feel like the consoles give you more portability and more.
Sure.
There's just good things about everything.
To be fair to the PC market, companies like NVIDIA and AMD build those GPUs with just as much love as any console manufacturer. Yeah, so it exists in the PC world too. It's just not fair to companies like AMD and NVIDIA that create things like Titans, and no developer can really fairly take advantage of that without leaving people out. Which is also true of PS5 release. I mean, games like Demon's Souls could never run on PS4, and so if you're not going to buy a PS5, you're left out. So I guess that's just gaming.
So in terms of, now we'll go back to the launch line. Would you say, this is now the 5th generation for Sony, out of all 5 generations, would you call this their best launch lineup, or where would you rank it? Where do you think it is in terms of launch lineup?
So I was on Twitter being like, oh man, PlayStation 5 best launch lineup ever, and somebody was like, well, what about the PS2 launch lineup? And I was like, I mean, if you didn't like SSX or Tekken Tag Tournament, you didn't have much to play. And he put a list in front of me of all the games that released, and I guess I just was too broke at the time to concern myself with because I was a kid. I mean, I was only like 17, 18 when the PS2 came out, so I didn't really have like a ton of money to get it, and I had to pick 1 or 2 games that I could pick up on launch day, if even. I was probably 1 game. So I don't know. I would say PS2 and PS5 have a pretty equivalent launch lineup.
So I would like to remind people. I'm very so into retro gaming. That the PS1 did have Final Fantasy VII in its lineup, like its launch.
But it wasn't
title.
launch.
I thought it was launch. I was told it was.
No.
Oh.
No,
it didn't come out.
Now I
until
feel like an
97.
idiot.
No,
Oh my god!
okay.
If that was in launch, it would have been number one because that's my number one game.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
because the PS1 actually launched, I think, in Japan in like late '94, and then the
March
US
of '94.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see. I was. I'm like me and Brad are both 27, so it was like 10 when the PS2 came out. So I don't remember launch for that. Like, if anything, I
Yeah.
remember PS3 and PS4. But if
Sure.
like, I don't know, I just really enjoy PS1 and PS2 games a lot better.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a huge collection of my largest collection is PS2 titles. Simply because there was that console sold like nothing in history and probably nothing ever will again. And everything was exclusive for PS2 back then because everybody had a PS2. Everybody had like 4 PS2s in their home within a couple years. Speaking statistically,
I had a
didn't have
PS2 and
4
an
PS2s.
and a GameCube. I didn't even have it.
Yeah.
Like, Xbox was just starting to be a thing when the PS2
Just
came
starting.
out. It was
Yep.
like, I think it was the Xbox was just released. It was their first Microsoft's first console. Like, I know someone
But
who
to
played.
show the dichotomy in sales, the PS2 sold 165 million units, whereas the GameCube and Xbox never broke 30 million.
Right.
So every single game was made for PS2, and if it wasn't made just for PS2, it was multi-platform on
Right.
PS2 as well. So my PS2 collection is gigantic, and I am completely with you. I absolutely love those old school games. I would rather go back and play a PS1 or a PS2 game than a PS3 or a PS4 game.
Yeah, I
I'm
didn't
not the
play
same
during the.
way.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I do the same thing. I actually my replay strategies are actually usually games from the '90s or very early.
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah.
I have never
Yep.
once gone
That
back
was
and played.
that to me is like the golden age of gaming for like. Well, it depends. We were talking about it a little bit on Twitter. I was talking about it with some. It depends on the genre, really. Like
It does.
It really does. But like for like RPGs, platformers, that was like the golden age. Was the '90s, 2000s. That's how
Definitely.
I felt.
It was, and
If-
it's easy to go back to because we don't get as many of those these days. I mean, yes, Nintendo still
Right.
makes platformers
But
and other stuff.
Everyone is trying to dip their hands in the battle royale market. Everyone's
Yeah,
trying to
and-
dip their hands into like the MOBAs, the FPS games.
That's more of a statement on, and I know you know, that's more of a statement on the
PC.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No. The big companies
Hmm.
coming into the market and seeing, man, we could really quadruple our income this year if we tap into this market somehow and are successful in tapping into it. Which I swear to God, it almost seems like impossible to tap into that market at this point without doing something like Fall Guys that's completely separate from most, I guess, massively multiplayer. It's not even an
It's a
MMO.
party game.
It's like it's like a giant party game. So I agree with you. It's definitely going more toward that, but we do see a lot. I think we see a lot of creativity that wasn't allowed in those early days. I know that sounds backward compared to what we were just saying, but back in the day, to take a risk with something like Tomb Raider, that company had 6 people working for it, including the composer. So they were taking a huge risk, spending every last dollar they had to get that pressed to discs, pay a publisher to push it out the, or I'm sorry, have a publisher pay to push it out the door. Whereas nowadays, there's a lot more accessibility for people like you and I to release like a $10 or $15 game on the PSN. You know, there's so many games out there now made by
Right.
one person.
Or like, yeah,
so-
I'm a big indie game person too. So,
Me
like,
too.
yeah,
And so while I will say that there was maybe more focus on platforms and stuff back then, it was all mainstream platforms. And nowadays you have a lot more choices
right.
in, I don't just have to play Mario or Crash Bandicoot. Now there's like 20 platformers made by 1 or 2 people. So I think I would say that gaming, I would say that was kind of a golden age, but gaming feels like it works more as like swells and shrinks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
Like there was a huge insurgence of platformers in the 90s, and then they kind of disappeared on the PS3, Xbox 360 era, and now they're kind of coming back on the PS4, PS5 era. So,
like you said, indie developers and such like that.
yeah.
And
So I don't know. It's because it's a brand new market and it's unventured territory. It's hard. It's hard to analyze it.
Now with the any console launch, and I think especially with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, we do have the issues of stock issues, scalpers, and with the rise of the internet, bots, which have plagued this kind of launch lineup and have given well, a lot of gamers that would actually use the console and not try to profit off of it, the just it's taken it from their hands. A lot of people
Yeah.
aren't able to get it to play it because there's people out here basically robbing people of the consoles to
Yeah.
make a quick buck. So, why don't you tell us your bit of thoughts on that? I know scalping is a lot of us don't agree with it. It's frustrating because you're literally taking something you have no desire, you have no interest in it. Basically, you are buying something to deprive somebody else of it to make a profit off of it.
You're capitalizing on something you don't deserve to capitalize on.
Exactly. That's
So,
a great way to
can
put
I
it.
give?
So,
Yeah.
I want to give a little different of a different perspective too.
Yeah.
Me and Cthulhu actually were having a discussion about this, and he like is very he says it's kind of like Sony's fault because there's actually like people willing to buy those. Like if people stopped buying them for like $1,000 at lunch, and like Sony like took care of it a lot better and made sure like scalpers didn't like, or like Walmart or like Best Buy, like these people like are allowing these like this technology to like buy them out of all their PlayStation 5s instead of.
So I understand like saying the company should do something about it, but the issue is that these bots that these people have set up, these scalpers have set up to buy 3,500 consoles at once, are in every sense of the word a real human being. There's no way for any company, website, or enterprise to stop them. And it sucks. It really is terrible that there are people that are so greedy and
That's what
depraved
I'm
out there
saying.
that they would set up for that. I
If
struggle
people
to.
stopped buying these $1,000 consoles and actually just
Right.
like ignored these scalpers and just waited until they got enough in, because now they're starting like it's January 10th. They're starting to
Yeah.
like actually like regulate it, and they're doing a lot better of a job
Right.
now.
Yeah.
But like if they would have like, I think this has been the hardest launch they've ever had. With
well,
Definitely.
scalpers.
you have a global pandemic being part of the problem too.
That's
and I
true.
think that's what makes the scalpers even worse, though, is that they're
Yeah.
literally taking advantage of people during a global pandemic.
A
And
forced online distribution.
yes, because
Yeah.
stores are not putting them in because they don't want people fighting over them and causing a super
Right.
spreader, which is valid. Sony and Microsoft have specifically requested that retailers do not put these consoles in the stores. And now, granted, some
Right.
of those violated those. Walmart violated those rules several times, and I believe got in trouble with Sony and Microsoft.
Didn't
for doing it.
GameStop also sell theirs in stores as
GameStop
well?
did it too. They did one.
So I would, to some degree, I would blame GameStop for the entire launch debacle, because I watched the entire presentation from Sony, obviously, and at the end they said these will go on sale tomorrow. So basically midnight tonight. The street date will be this day. GameStop immediately started selling their stock immediately after that. So GameStop ignored Sony's street date, and then because GameStop did it, Best Buy did it. And then once Best Buy did it, every single retailer in the country besides Amazon broke street date, which doesn't make any sense to me. You already have the finite stock number that you're going to get, and GameStop selling through their 5,000 or whatever they have, just an arbitrary number, is not going to change your sales. So I don't understand why everybody did that. But I do think that this was an unprecedented situation in several ways for both Microsoft and Sony. I don't think that Sony understood the demand that they were going to have for the PS5. They probably, I remember when they were very nervous and apprehensive about the cost of the PS4, because the cost of the PS5 for the first couple years crushed it. Being $600, it really made people not attracted to it. It was a different time, apparently, because nobody's batting an eye at a $500 console anymore. That's just like, okay, I'm fine. When I saw that the price of the PS5 was going to be $500, I was like, Sony said, our sweet spot, we've discovered our sweet spot is $399. That's what all of our consoles should launch at going forward after the PS4 launched and it was super successful. They started talking about this sweet spot for consoles, which is really $299, but $399 is still palatable within that realm. They, according to what their studies and consumers showed. So when they announced that the PS5 was going to be $500, I think that to some degree they expected, all right, so it's going to be a bit of a slow upstart because only the people that are willing to drop $500, only hardcore gamers are going to go out and do this. But everybody,
saving since they announced
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that they didn't expect the demand to be so high because the demand for the PS5 is unprecedented. Like, it's way more than even I would have expected as a fanboy.
Didn't expect it to be this either.
No.
And I think it's fueled also by a pandemic. People have been getting back into gaming more because
Exactly.
they're locked up.
They're stuck at home. They're bored. I just put a story on my Twitter the other day about my dad wanting to get back into console gaming. He hasn't touched a console since like PS3, and it was for 10 minutes. So he asked me the other day if I have any old consoles I want to give him because he's so bored at home. And I think the broken street date from so many retailers and the demand being 4 times greater than they said they anticipated for, and then the pandemic. All 3 of those things created the worst possible environment for a healthy launch.
I agree.
And don't get me wrong, it's obviously been very healthy for them. Their stock is skyrocketing. They're selling every PlayStation 5 they make. But part of that is to scalpers. And I used to run concerts. I used to do outside operations for concerts and sports venues. So I've dealt with scalpers my entire life. And it's just such a sad situation that somebody feels that they can take something that somebody desperately wants, knowing they desperately want it, and then go be like, I know how bad you want this, so pay me 3 times for it, because they know they'll do it. And I do wish people would stop doing that, but man, when you have a kid that wants something for Christmas, or you're me,
you're like a dangerous Sony
it's
fanboy.
a bit of desperation, yeah. So I think there's more, like Brad said, there's more gamers out there now than ever, as a result of not only the pandemic, but accessibility. And for whatever reason, despite its size, the PS5 and its cost, the PS5 is just, and the Series X, which is significantly smaller, they just didn't, no matter what, they could not have planned for the amount of people, even though knowing, man, it's a pandemic, everyone's stuck at home, I still don't think they properly planned. And what more could they have done? They created the factories in June to build it. They're pumping out a PlayStation 5 right away every 1 minute. Every minute, there's a whole PS5 built by the factory. So there's only so many PS5s they could have built by the launch day to release anyway, regardless of how much they had planned for an explosive launch. There's still only a specific amount of consoles you can make when you have a factory up and running within 4 or 5 months of the launch. So I think,
right. So let me.
I don't know.
I'll raise a question here. I'll raise a question just for an interesting debate subject. Do you think it would have been wise for maybe these companies? Obviously, you know that you have only so many, but do you think it would have been wise to let everybody pre-order it, but give them staggered dates of when they would receive the console based on when they knew they would have inventory, and then they would just be charged when they're shipped? Like, everybody could get the console, but they wouldn't be charged until that console was shipped. And yes, it might be a couple months, but do you think that would have been feasible in a way?
I don't know. That's hard because that's unprecedented.
I don't
Nothing
think
has
a
ever.
company could do that. Like, it would be so inconsistent with the customers, the consumer base.
So to some degree, GameStop did that. My friend in Idaho went to his in-person GameStop and waited in line from like 5 o'clock in the morning until they opened, with 2 other people that were there waiting in line, separate of him. And when they opened, they said, you guys are actually our second round of customers. You can come in and pre-order the console, but you might not get it until 1 or 2 weeks after the launch. And they still pre-ordered it, but I know when it came to launch day, he was like really antsy and concerned because he really wanted it.
Yeah.
As to when he'd be getting it, and GameStop just kind of said it'll be after. It'll be a week or two, hopefully, that we get our next round. So I think if they had definite dates, it might put people's mind at ease. But I don't think anybody out there, based on the way that I saw people reacting to GameStop doing that, I don't think that people would be okay being like, I'm plunking down $500 and go ahead and take it out of my bank account for
Well,
whenever you send the console.
okay. No, that's fair. I totally understand that. It was kind of a curiosity thing. I know because
Yeah.
some people Walmart did that with online.
Right.
That's how I got mine. They told me, here we have it. You'll get it probably January 11th was the estimated shipping date. I ended up getting it on Christmas Eve, luckily. So Christmas miracle. But
Oh,
reality
yeah, I
was-
remember. I saw that.
yeah, it
You're
was-
like crying, dude. Like
I do. So if there's something like the way Walmart handled it, according to what you're saying, I think that it would be successful. My nephew wants one really, really bad, and my mother-in-law is trying to get one, but she just keeps calling me, being like, "Where can I get one? What can I do?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. You're gonna have to wait like 6 months." I think it would probably put her mind at ease if she could go on Amazon or Walmart or wherever she wants to buy it from and just click buy now or buy whatever, and get an email saying you've definitely been secured for your PS5, and it'll hopefully, maybe it'll arrive within 2 months or some message or something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think if they did that, it probably would put a lot of minds at ease.
Yeah, and I think that would be nice in a way, and it would hopefully, if you see more real people securing it in that type of way, it might cool down the scalper market as well if they find a way to do it. I know
Yes.
it's very difficult in general because
Mhm.
it's a two-way street for everybody.
Yeah.
It's on one end, don't scalp, don't
Right.
do that on purpose. On the other end, they can't scalp, they can't make any money off it if you refuse to buy it from them too. So
Right.
it goes both ways, but it is very hard to convince a mother of any type of parent, mother or father that has a kid that's like, this is all they want for Christmas or their birthday
Yeah.
or whatever it is, and that's the only option because I'm a parent myself, as is
Mhm.
she and Matt. I know you've had kids before too.
Mhm.
So the reality is you want to do anything for your kid.
Yeah.
You want them to
Right.
have, make them happy and do the whole thing. It's like this badge of honor for a parent. Hey, made my kid happy, got them what they want, type of thing. And so it's hard, and you cave in and you do it, and there is
Yeah.
the super fanboy part of it. I had the super fanboy thing going where I said I can wait. I was like, I can't wait. Like I really wanted it, and
I could see it. I could see the subtext in your tweets.
Yep.
No,
It
I'm
it
a
hard.
little more
I tried
patient,
so
so-
hard, and I couldn't, and I got desperate, and there was the fixation level on it. I even got scammed out of one. I had to deal with
I
a whole
know.
situation with that, and then
Mm-hmm.
I got the whole Walmart thing, and luckily it was out of nowhere. I had a buddy that literally works for Walmart in their computer programming department. He programs their apps, and
That's awesome.
dude was like, I just got a PS5. Like the dude hasn't owned a console since the PS3. He's a big PC gamer. He's like, hey, I just secured one to keep trying. If you got one, I was like, no, and I was like, you son of a bitch! Like,
Yeah.
I've been like, I've been chomping at the bits for this, and you logged on one day, and
Yes.
Okay, so
Let me tell you, I was never so angry as I was because they said, pre-orders will start tonight at midnight or whatever, tomorrow morning at midnight, however you say it. So I went to the gym and worked out for an hour, and I got an email from Best Buy while I was in the gym saying, you can pre-order it now. And it was gone within, and I mean, I was in the gym for 45 minutes beyond that email. It was well pre-ordered through, so I thought for sure I was not going to get one. And thankfully, a friend of mine posted, he gets notifications from Amazon when they're about to post a new product. And he sent that link to me 3 minutes before midnight. So I clicked it and there it was.
Lucky
So
you.
I just got really lucky. It does help that I'm like constantly out there being like, find me a PS5. I'm gonna die. It's ridiculous how. Let me ask you guys, how did you feel about all the comments from people being like, just know that if you got a PS5 at launch, you took that from someone's kid's Christmas. How did you
Oh
feel about that?
man, I
That was
love
bullshit.
those. I love those. I love
I-
fucking Karens. Like,
I laughed my ass off so hard. I was like, by the way, video games are for everybody, and while I
Christmas
want
is
everybody
for
to have one, fuck your
kids.
kid, I'm happy.
I hate that. I'm like, everyone says like, oh, Christmas is for kids. You're taking away a kid's Christmas gift. I'm like, honey, I've been waiting for this for like 10 years. So.
And the way I see it is, if sounds so insensitive and terrible, but if you cared as much about your kid getting a PS5 as I cared about getting a PS5, then you would have been on the website at the same time as me. You can't put it on me that I got a PS5 and you weren't there on the website at midnight furiously refreshing with your credit card in hand. That's not fair to the world. I'm sorry. Yeah, it sucks and I feel terrible for your kid, but your kid's not the only one. Everybody was in that
boat. It's a thing. Gaming is, and it goes in the argument of gaming is for everybody. And you know, kids and parents, as parents, we have to learn to adapt. Even as a parent, for me, if my kid wants the console at launch, and I know I'm going to want the console at launch anyway. So I mean, in a gaming household, the parents are already on top of it.
Right.
But that's the picture right there in a gaming household. Whereas the vast majority of households are not gaming households, and mom or dad play we're talking about mom or dad play like Bejeweled on their phone or on their laptop. Right.
Exactly.
So those people are out of the loop.
You know, those kids, the kids got to tell their parents, you know, how do you get it? The parents have to do their research. As any type of parent, you want to do your research. You know,
so growing up as somebody, sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, my mom, when she was buying Christmas gifts for stuff we want or anything she did her research. She figured it out. Or I would tell her how I wanted to do it. I mean, my mom was able to get me a PS4 at launch. Like, I didn't know how to pre-order. I really wanted it. I was a poor college kid, so I couldn't buy it on my own. I couldn't do the pre-orders or anything. And my mom's like, I'll go find one at Christmas. And she got lucky at Target. She went there with a friend.
Wow.
They were both looking for one for their kids. Her friend's son was the same age as me. And Target had some in the back. They weren't supposed to sell them, but the guy sold them to them anyway, and they walked out with them. And it worked out perfectly, and I got one for Christmas, and I was because that's all I told my parents I wanted for Christmas that year. I said, you don't have to get anything else, just give me this 4.
I grew up in a gaming household, so I was very lucky growing up.
And I did not. I grew up with parents that still cannot figure out, they still like look down their nose at the phone and try to figure out, like they tap the screen from 10 feet away and hold it like it's a terrifying piece of technology that's going to destroy their life if they push the wrong app or something. So I was that kid that grew up with parents that had no idea anything about technology at all. And I had to be like, guys, I need you to find me Tomb Raider 2 on Christmas. And here's where you'll find it. And here's how much it will cost. And, you know, I would show them the cover and everything so that there was no chance that they missed out the opportunity to get it for me if they planned on.
Yeah.
So I think, it's important for the gamer to be like, no, guys, here's what you got to do if you want to get this.
Once again, it's a two-way street. There's a two-way street for everything. The parent has to go in and do their research, but if the kid understands the concept, you as the kid have to tell your parents, like, look, I know this. Like, if you're passionate about it, you go in, and the parent they look it up, they ask, and
it's no different than any toy launch from when I was a kid. Right. I mean, people used to seriously tear each other apart at Christmas for
a toy.
The next G.I. Joe figure with Kung Fu grip or something stupid. They would seriously push each other over to get those toys because there was nothing but retail.
Black Friday.
So it's no different. Yeah, it's no different than it ever was. We just have online options and we can see the chaos.
Yeah. So like it's also us as gamers. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I didn't know about the release." Like it's our responsibility as gamers to keep up on that. Like read articles, read gaming magazines. Like I have news articles that pop up on my phone all the time.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to exactly what we were just saying.
Right.
The reason that this launch was so mad and so crazy and is still so in demand is because everyone in the world knew about it. It wasn't this obscure thing only gamers know about. Every person that gets on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok sees an ad or some sort of presence for this thing from the company right away. Whereas it was like a niche thing. You were like watching N4G or whatever that television was.
G4,
there you go.
Oh my God.
G4 TV to see commercials for video games. So only you and I ever saw, hey, PS2 or PS3 coming out this day, buy one today. Whereas nowadays, our parents aren't even watching TV anymore. Yes. They're literally living their lives on the internet like the rest of us. And so they see all of the ads for them. And I think that's helped is that it's mainstream.
Yeah, and if you look at it, the PS5 launch, and here's what's so funny about the botchery of it is that it was so botched that SNL made a whole skit about how
I know, I know, I
I
saw
haven't seen
it.
that. I'll have to watch it.
the Eminem parody there
It's
with
an Eminem parody, yeah.
Oh my
it's
god,
it's the
this
Stan,
sounds great.
yeah, Stan song.
Stan one, yeah.
Oh,
Where
I
he's,
heard of that. I haven't seen it myself though, so I'll have
Yeah,
to.
he's writing to Santa Claus to get him a PS5.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Like the super hardcore Santa fandom thing, where he's like driving in the rain, just telling Santa where's my PS5. It was
And it's
great.
got Dido and all kinds of it's
Yeah,
good.
that's how significantly famously bad this launch was, and the issues with the scalping and everything. That once Saturday Night Live parodies, it's become a big deal. Like it's an issue
Absolutely.
if it makes it to late night television.
And I know
Mhm.
Europe made like laws against scalping, like they were working on a law or something like that.
Okay, I heard that, and I saw this, on Twitter that someone had posted that they proposed legislation in the UK to, to
Okay,
ban.
I was gonna say in the UK that makes sense. That kind of thing would never fly here. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I'm against it. It should fly here. We should be able to be like, no, it's not fair for you to take someone else's
But
product that
my
they spent
freedoms.
millions of billions of dollars inventing, and you capitalize on it because it's in demand to make 3 times more. I don't
Yeah,
agree with that, and I definitely think there should be laws. But
Oh, I agree too. There needs to be some type of restriction and stuff on
Yeah.
that. I understand that we are in a free market, but there's like a level of free market, like basically stealing somebody else's product and making more
absolutely.
money is.
How can Nintendo blast a family of 4 with a $16 million lawsuit for playing a game on YouTube, but scalpers can take the very product, the Nintendo Switch, and make 5 times as much on it because it's in demand? It's the same thing, and we just don't see the relationship there enough to concern ourselves with it. In addition, gaming being as big as it is, console gaming is still niche. Yes, it makes more money than any other entertainment industry and all of them combined, but console gaming is not, most families buy the new iPhone or the new Samsung or the new phone. They don't really think about the new PS5 until they see it on the shelf.
Yeah.
So I think that it's still kind of niche, so people don't really concern themselves with scalping laws. But like I said, when I ran concert venues and sports venues, those scalpers legally were not breaking the law unless they were within 1,000 feet of the venue. So I literally had to just walk them 1,000 feet away, and then they weren't breaking the law anymore. So the laws have to be proper and strict, but I don't think that that's something we'll ever come to. As
it'll
far
be
as
very-
us,
Yeah.
I don't think we will.
It'll be very
Unfortunately,
difficult to do, even though, like I said, scalping has been around. Concert tickets. I heard it's really big in the sneaker market.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
I forget about the.
That's apparently where
Oh.
scalping began. Was the sneaker market.
Yeah,
Is kind
I
of where I
forgot
got
about
the
that.
idea of it, but
that doesn't
hopefully,
surprise me.
yeah, no. And so you hope that things will be that eventually change, but we know right now you won't see anything in the United States. We have too much.
Yeah.
The
No,
United States needs
I
to
hate
focus
to
on.
interrupt. For time purposes,
You're okay.
I'm going to end this episode. I'm going to start the next one.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
all right. Listen. Thank you guys for listening onto this one. I will be posting both of them at the same time, so hopefully you guys continue. All right.